I'm the most powerful witness on earth. Absolute primordial being number one on every study done by the biggest think tank in the world, mental health research and DNA, with 34 years of study, 34 years of evidence, more than 50 meters of documents you can read about me. I've left my mark on earth like no other human being on earth has even dared to do. I'm not here to make a name for myself or be some kind of social media actor. That's the way people think today. I'm one of a kind, the only one alive, with the most powerful divine interventions and most powerful miracles in modern history. Even bringing someone back to life given 0% chance of living 3 times, with peer reports and CCTV to back it up. The most powerful confirmation on earth. I brought someone back to life given 0% chance of living. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. No one else in the world harnesses the power, the divine power to command nature the way I do. By the biggest think tank in the world in the Star Chamber Inquiry, I am the gatekeeper of godlike power with superhuman abilities or supernatural power. These are facts. My DNA leads society with the book Freedom by Jeremy Griffiths, with 16,000 top scholars in the world on the same page. The Holy Grail of life. I'm the first person in the world that comes with the cure of the human conditioning. Every single thing you suffer from. Stress, fear, anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, paranoia, living in your own truth, living in a comfort zone, mental health research, mental disorders and gene defects going through the roof, and everybody dies from stress-related diseases prematurely by 900 years. You can let it be 1,000. So everybody lies to you. Everyone's trapped in a placebo effect, anti-clockwise, in their bilinear DNA, with hereditary gene defects. 600 to 6,000 in 98.7% of the population. As declared worldwide, 77% of Western children in America are now born with chronic diseases because their parents live in denial. Declared 2003. You're declared post-human stage and your parents are crazy in 1999 and you didn't care. Instead, you got polarized in the screen 8 hours a day in a 5-sense world. Inverted. Inverted. Do you understand what the word inverted is? It means you're inwards, not outwards. It means you're anti-clockwise, not clockwise. But you don't believe in that. Well, 95% of people in the world is a species in denial. Can only use 7 to 10% of the brain. Highest IQ people in the world can only use 15%. A mastermind uses 100%. And I'm the biggest mastermind in the world, according to the biggest think tank on the biggest study ever done. Met with the greatest resistance by 99.999% of the population because they're artificial human beings. Transhumans, they're called. Zombie apocalypse. All think they know everything about life, but they haven't got a clue what they're doing. They live in denial. They live in their own truth. They live in manifestations. Right? The competitive creatures worldwide and actors, because when they can't use any more than 50% of the brain, then they act for someone else. They don't act for themselves. Only a mastermind who can master his own vessel and master his mind knows what he's doing. He thinks outside the mind, not with the mind. Everybody else depends on the mind and the grammar of religious political behavior or New Age cults with artificial intelligence and leverage mutation with the grammar they select, with unnatural selection worldwide. People can't handle the truth, can't face it, can't deal with it worldwide. They live in denial. And it's not a joke. Imagine less than 1% really knows what's going on. And out of that 1%, there's only a handful of masterminds. We call them the elect in the Bible. You're waiting for one man to come. One man, but you will not know who he is. but he'll leave his mark on earth. He'll set the standards no one else has. He'll be the most avoided person in the world as well. He'll be an outlaw from the underground world. He'll come from the cave of prison with the tooth of masses and shining armor, like a thief in the night, in raggedy clothes. You won't like him. 99% of you will not like him at all. And you don't. Because I am that person. And you will not know who I am. But you'll know by the mark on earth I leave here. And what I've done. There's no one else on earth like me. In the biggest study ever done. There's no one that compares with me. Unlawfully deported, I write 3 official letters to border security, immigration, and governments. If you unlawfully deport me, I will fold space and time in the most powerful international security system in the world. And I'll come back through the international airports under facial recognition and security systems by Interpol. So I write the 3 official letters, get unlawfully deported from Australia to Denmark, and then I go through 6 international events and prove it. The most powerful confirmation on earth by border security and the biggest think tank in the world, right through the all-seeing eye, the most powerful security system in the world by the CCTV, satellite systems, and the most powerful facial recognition system in the world. I'm not on one camera. Every other passenger is. There's not a glitch in the system. I'm on CCTV on the trains and platforms outside, and the JP's confirmed it, talking to me and exchange conversations. Fully confirmed. And they cannot explain this. It's unexplainable. Completely unexplainable. No one can explain this. The system, write down on the documents, there's no other evidence to suggest otherwise. The letters confirm that God does exist with evidence. The end of the investigation says there is no other evidence. And the head of border security in Australia flew up from Melbourne to Brisbane and came and see me with a pastor and changed his whole faith system. In shock. He was an atheist. In shock. White as a ghost. These are the kind of events from my life. Powerful. The most powerful events ever recorded in modern history. Do you think anyone cares or believes in me? No, they don't. Everyone's a credit thief and a liar. Steal conscience and couldn't care less because they can't feel the truth anymore. They come to their own conclusion with reasoning in their mind. Competitive creatures. Selfish creatures all over the earth. Plenty of them. Living in their own truth, couldn't care less. Only about themselves and their own opinions. Trapped so deep into themselves in post-human states they can't even think straight. The last human being born on earth that can use his genetic memory and his genetic process with his ancestors and tools were born in 1960. And I'm the last one born in every study done. And no one believes in it. Well, aren't they stupid? They only believe in themselves and the voice of mind that controls them, ultimately designed for human extinction, declared by Jim McGivers and 16,000 top scholars in the world. They keep listening to their own voice of mind without a care factor and live in denial. Complete denial. But their aura and their body cells is anti-clockwise, and their body cells in corrupts collusion during the daytime and can only repair 3.5 hours a night. We repair 24 hours a day because we're clockwise. Remote viewing. Deja-Vu to predict the future, prevent what's going to happen. This is the most powerful book on earth. The testimony of Dracula Reborn. The most powerful confirmation that I predict the future. This is solid evidence. The most powerful evidence on earth. But you don't believe in that. Who cares what you think? Who cares what's going on in your mind? You don't. So don't think God cares about you neither. When you only care about yourself. Trapped so deep into yourself and into your systems that controls you. You can't use 100% of your brain. You can only use 7 to 15%. So don't tell me that you're qualified to judge when you're a transhuman trapped in your mind, in mentality, in your consciousness. A mental event, a mental process, an illusion, imagination designed by the Rockefellers in 1640 into the conscious singularity by WF. You're all living in your mind. Inner personality with mentality, but no spirituality, because you haven't got mental telepathy, ESP, remote viewing, mental telepathy, ESP, telekinesis, levitation, spoon bending, clock winding, folding space and time with Deja-Vu to predict the future, prevent what's going to happen. You cannot do what Christ can and more in your DNA with genetic memory. You lost that ability. You have amnesia, trapped in a reincarnation trap. He learned reincarnation life after life, and at 24 he said, I'm son of David, son of Abraham. What part of that don't you understand? Nimrod resurrected in the all-seeing eye of Ardis through Osiris. The Rockefellers, Bill Gates, the tyrants in this world, the capitalist monsters in America, the pigs, monopolization and capitalism that took over the world in the 70s. 2% mental disorders and defects to 98% today in 60 years. With capitalism, American capitalism, all their oil giants and their Bill Gates and their Elon Musk and their Trumps and all these idiots, all these morons that they believe in the most. Idiots. Artificial human beings all over the earth. All they care about is their greed, power and temptation and their money, materialistic things. Their modern technology, the modern gadgets with images, and their principality in the power in the air that got them by the balls. Revelation, the book Revelation, the end times, it's right in front of your face on the IPP signing reports with 15,500 documents declared in 1999. You're brain dead. You don't believe the Bible. You don't believe the evidence. You don't believe the DNA studies done. You only believe what you want to believe in. That's how dumb you are. A species in denial. Declared 2003. A species in brain-locked denial. Worldwide. Worldwide. Only believe in their own truth. Only manifest their own truth. Only believe the voice of mind, themselves. I remember the 60s and the 70s. Okay, we used to sit out in the veranda all day in a community environment. Everybody was happy, smiling in the streets, talking to everybody. We knew everybody for miles. Today on social media platform, you don't even know your neighbours. You don't even smile in the streets. You act like robots all over the world, actors. You're not even yourself anymore. People were smiling and happy in the 60s and the early 70s. And then the oil giants took over, right, with capitalism, right, with all the roadhouses and the motor companies took over with franchising. That killed the world in the 70s with the Cold War. And the Cold War, people got trapped in screens. Mental disorders and DDX went through the roof. Only 2% in 1960. 98.7% today with their aura anti-clockwise. No one can cope on drugs, drug pandemics and suicide rates and stress pandemics and paranoia all worldwide. A virus spreading with a placebo effect affecting fauna, collapsing 38 to 98% nutrition value worldwide. Animals going around in circles over the earth. Birds falling out the sky. Fish going around in circles in the oceans. Shaman on the whole planet is changing. Volcanoes everywhere. Sulfuric fog all over the world. Oxygen collapsing. Bacteria immune system collapsing between 59% of every human being on earth because their body cells in corruption, collusion, more and more every day. More and more every day, escalating every single day. Mental disorders and defects and cancer, blood clot, myocarditis, going absolutely in turbocharged rate, accelerating in every hospital, peer reports worldwide. Hawaiian syndromes, people lost their magnetic pulse, all their magnetic fields. Hawaiian syndromes worldwide gone up 7 times in the last 5 years alone, with peer reports from every hospital location in the world. We now know stress-related diseases, which we die prematurely from, is all to do with magnetic pulse, Bryan syndromes. So the Bryan syndrome shows the delusional state people are in DNA, the book of life. Mental disorders and DDX go through the roof with confusion, frustration, delusion, paranoia, and self-centered behavior with opinions, sitting on a screen all day, just want to make a name for themselves, trapped into their own truth, trapped in narratives all over the world, in their own little narratives, trapped in so deep they have amnesia worldwide, can't remember jack shit. They don't remember nothing. They think they do, but they don't. They live in denial worldwide. Since post-human declaration in 1999, they're totally in denial. Totally in denial. The last human being born on earth that can master his own vessel and master his mind, right, with all his genetic memory, was born in 1960, and the rest live in fucking denial. In a delusional state. They don't care. They don't know what love is. They don't know what the quantum mechanics are of the attuned codependent power with 27 biofields. And that's your divine power to command nature. And without that, you're gone. You're gone. And there's no way out of this. It's a sixth mass extinction, stripped from the sixth sense for the sixth time, and it's about to escalate so far out of control, you have no idea. But the placebo effect we can measure on negative fears is spreading like a virus. Spreading like a virus and affecting everything in fauna, nature, and animals, ground circles over the earth, Bryan syndromes, mental disorders, DNA defects, and has 100,000 different side effects. Not just one. Massive inflection points, and most of them are beyond the point of return. We can no longer change mankind from the way he thinks and the way he judges in his mind. He's trapped beyond the point of return, in denial, declared worldwide. Don't care. Just keep going fast track into nowhere, but its own extinction. But he doesn't know how to go in a time where time stands still like preserves, in his DNA and his biology, in genetic process to preserve, in a time where time stands still and life preserves. Most people are going fast track into nowhere without realizing it, because the mind doesn't know. The mind's not keeping up with things. The mind can't feel. Atmospheres collapse worldwide. The auras collapse between 95 and 99% in every single Western in the world. Only 1.3% has a perfect aura clockwise and no mental disorders, no defects, and repair 24 hours a day. Only 1.3% can repair 24 hours a day and preserve DNA. Only 1.3% can do that. So they are naturally selected through DNA. We know that. Natural selection taking place. And that's happening worldwide right now. Natural selection. And the natural selection takes place until the 27th September 2027, and that's the deadline, the inflection point of no return. You don't cross over by then back in your primordial state, you're screwed. You have to be in your primordial state in your spirituality and not trapped in mentality in a personality. And that's what's happened worldwide. People are not human anymore. They gave too much consent and sold their soul out. And that's reality that people can't deal with in mentality. But mentality is never going to get you out of here. The mind doesn't know what it's doing. It plays tricks and games. You become your own worst enemy, your own prison, your own warden in your mind. You don't believe that. You're not qualified to judge. You can only 7 to 10% of your brain in 99%. You're not qualified to judge. And your highest IQ people in the world can only use 15%. They're not qualified to judge anything because they gave consent to an outside influence to control their reality when they can't control it themselves. And they don't even have faith in their own biological genes to use their own natural selection with their natural organic motor skills, coded in their own DNA, their own genetic memory, their own genetic process, because they have amnesia and they live in denial. They have 24th chromosome with supernatural power godlike power, and it's in dormancy. You can see it in cellular study research. 24th chromosome activated gives you the abilities in innocence, in selflessness, not in a character, not in a Hollywood character and a self-centered creature, to be a competitive person like every American is, because they have the worst DNA in the world, most self-envy, most self-pride. They become like Freemasons in the whole country without realizing it, because they follow the footsteps of Noah and his family, the naked drunks, and Nimrod, the milestone. They're the ones that took away universal language. They're the ones that put you in confusion, frustration, delusion, and paranoia with nations and religious political cults and New Age cults, and always mold the truth with evolution, mutation, and artificial intelligence. And that's the people you love the most, because that's what you're entertained with by the most. And you don't believe in it. You're not even qualified to judge. You're post-humans going into a zombie apocalypse declared worldwide. A body-snatching virus, they call it, in peer reports on Bryan syndromes worldwide. And you live in denial. Can you do what Christ can and more in your DNA? Can you harness the power, divine power to command nature? No, you can't. So your religious political cults and all your Christians past and preach and all your New Age robots and actors all over the world, everyone failed. Look at the movie Limitless with a drug. A drug called bread manna in the Bible come from a plant called mayhem. On every testing centre in Australia, between 1994 and 1999, I proved that that drug proves that you have no idea what you're doing in your mind. We brought down the highest deaths of American Keeneland bonds and misbonds in 30 years, in 4 years. That changed all the circumstances with the biggest DNA study ever done in human history and mental health research. We proved you can use 100% of your mind with a drug. Bread manna, Christ and Moses used in the Bible. We made that drug on every testing centre across Australia. I developed the most powerful enlightenment drug and truth serum and love drug in the world ever developed. To recreate the sacred secretion and your natural abilities. To recreate the sacred secretion, to use the sixth sense with the third eye, the picture that shows you 1,000 words that cannot lie to you. See in the movie Limitless, a vortex of information with sevenfold wisdom and knowledge. With a drug. From a plant called mayhem. I developed that drug. Nobody else did. So not only do I come here as the real witness and one you're waiting for, but also developed the drug and proved it and brought people back in the primal state for the first time in human history. That course the Royal Commission paying out for 23 years, the stolen victimization policy being paid $250 billion a day by worldbank.org, and the biggest mental health research and DNA study ever done with Jeremy Coovis. We found the last human beings born on earth that can do every single thing that Christ can and more, the holy grail of life, with the holy breath of life. We're not breathing program. It's won and over prize without a credential. We were chosen for this, for resurrection. I protect the elect with the biggest declaration ever made worldwide in the biggest merge you've ever seen, with natural selection and natural order. Why WF wants to take out the natural selection of a place with intelligent design, and your government signing with them because they're filthy, disgusting, nefarious. They're artificial human beings with an alien invasion as set by Pentagon and outside influence, a possession. As Jeremy Gibbs says, everyone's possessed, right? With a voice in mind that's ultimately designed for human extinction that will tell you whatever you want to believe in a Christ consciousness, which is an illusion of imagination. And everyone's living in that illusion of imagination with consciousness, which is only a mental event, mentality, not spirituality. People's lost their mind completely. They gave consent. They now believe in consciousness and not spirituality, and replace spirituality with their own grammar and that kind of barcode with light, power, entity, vibrations and frequencies, and now they don't have any quantum mechanics of codependent power. That's why they haven't got relationships in real life. No codependent relationships and no soulmates in their real life. They'd rather have synthetic friends, sit on a screen all day to make a name for themselves with their opinions, and as declared worldwide, they only care about their opinions. All their books are written on their opinions, are inverted. All their movies are propaganda and inverted. Everyone on social media platform was an actor and inverted into their own opinions. And all people care about is themselves and their opinions. Worldwide, in 98.7% of the population that only cares about their own opinions and live in their own mind, where the voice of mind ultimately designed for human extinction because their aura is anti-clockwise. No matter what comes out of their mouth, they can say what they like. I've been watching these species my whole life. You know, I'm a real spiritual person, and I know the spirit in people. And it's collapsed worldwide, and their auras collapsed. All they are is a mouthpiece and an actor and talk about crap all day. Can't hold an intellectual conversation. Don't know what unconditional love is. Don't even know the meaning of the care factor because it's collapsed worldwide. Loyalty, honor, respect, multiples, inspiration, and encouragement are the 8 tools of righteousness, right, which gives you peace and harmony. And that's a relationship with codependent power, and you don't have any. Because God took it away from you. From your species and your kind. He took it off you. Because you're a character. You're a Hollywood character, an American spinner, and all you care about is yourself and your own opinion. Trapped so deep into yourself. Filthy, godless, immoral creatures all over the earth, like the days of Noah, like the days of Lot. And anyone can see that with any basic common sense, but people don't have any. They always support the opposite. Their own kind, they mentally resonate with their own kind. They have no tune to the codependent power. They mentally resonate with everybody on a screen all day with a 5 cents world, with principality and the power in the air that they're addicted to, with massive addictions worldwide, and they live in denial at the same time. Complete denial. You know, I made a powerful video in 2008 in prison, in the prison system, when all these people from the streets was on this drug and they came to prison. They went into the biggest mental health research and DNA studies done in 2001 when I went to prison. They found all our DNA in prison. They could use 100% of our minds and cure the human condition for the first time in human history. I became the first cab of the rank, with many others in the biggest study done. From prisons all over Australia. My product was in every testing centre in Australia. This was a massive operation and not an isolated situation. From every prison across Australia, all of a sudden, they went deep into this. They discovered the Star Chamber inquiry. I was number 1 cab of the rank, arrested with 105 people by the biggest think tank in the world, the Star Chamber inquiry, with godlike power. The biggest masterminds they'd ever seen in human history that could outpower them and maneuver them 7 to 1. They had to use direction microphones because we could feel the truth when they put pen to paper in the courtroom with Deja-Vu and predicted, right, the future. So they couldn't stop us. They found out with direction microphones, the minute they put pen to paper in the courtroom, I could feel the truth and see it with remote viewing, with Deja-Vu and prevent what's going to happen. I don't care what you say. 7 powerful documents. I'm one of a kind and could do 7 things that no one in the world's ever done. The most powerful confirmation on earth that I have the godlike power to fold everything the way that it needs to be, with principality and the power in the air, with the most powerful confirmation on earth, and 99.999% of people don't care. No, they got their own God. Oh yeah, God knows that. You were told there'll only be one person here. One, they'll come with the resurrection, protect the elect. And I'm the most avoided person in the whole world by every artificial human being and every robot and zombie in the world. And the world's loaded with them. Pastors, preachers, and Christians, all full of BS. No faith at all. When God develops this, 5 biblical prophecies land on my date of birth with the most powerful declarations made worldwide that you avoid the most. 5 declarations are made on my date of birth, warned in the Bible. Prophecies unfolding perfectly. 5 massive prophecies land on my date of birth with 5 massive declarations worldwide. And you couldn't give a shit. You don't believe the Bible, you don't believe me, and you don't believe the declaration. Strange, isn't it? Because all 3 is a trinity. That's how dumb the world is. Imagine how the Father feels. How dumb you all are. Oh, you think you know better, do you? With artificial intelligence and leverage imitation on the ground you depend on. Yeah, sure you know better. You have no faith, you have no feelings, you have no divine power. Because God does not trust you with a 10-foot pole. That's the obvious. He didn't give you the divine intervention. He didn't select you naturally, natural selection. He didn't give you the divine power to command nature. He didn't choose you from the date of birth. He didn't give you Deja-Vu to predict the future and prevent what's going to happen. He didn't give you none of that. So why do you live in a delusion? Huh? You never crossed over. You never resurrected. You never went back in your primal state warned in Revelation. You didn't care. You didn't have the thirst. You're so deep into yourself and your narrative and your self-centered belief system and your propaganda and your placebo effect anti-clockwise that you're molded into, that you believe in more than anything, the voices in your mind that tell you to do that. You don't even know who you are. With amnesia? I don't have amnesia. I'm not trapped in the reincarnation trap. I know who I am. I left my mark on earth like no other. In jail, the biggest learning curve I ever learned was a jail for 10 years. In a time where time still preserves and natural selection takes place, and after a cycle of life of 7 years, in this environment, we preserve DNA. We find freedom in prison you cannot find outside in the cycle of life. We go back in a primal state the same as 0 to 7 when we're perfect, and our aura's clockwise. Then we go to school and become anti-clockwise in the mind, and suffer the human condition throughout our life, and die prematurely from stress-related diseases. Then you come to jail for a cycle of life, and you go back into primal state after 7 years, the same as 0 to 7, and you find freedom from the human conditioning, from the mentally institutionalization you go to school with. You find freedom in prison from the mentally institutionalization, being trapped inside the mind in a long dark cave in the skull, in a personality with mentality, with voice of mind that tells you to do that. You come to jail and cycle life of 7 years, you go back into primal state, the same as 0 to 7, and then you explore that wonderful God-given gift in prison. That's why we come out of cave with a prison, with the truth of masses, and DNA proves it. We found the cure of the human conditioning in prison. And you can find that cure in 7 years in a cycle of life. It took Moses 45 years, and he taught his disciples, or the Israelites, 40,000 to go back in their primal state. It took them 40 years. Okay, 3 generations. It took every other prophet in history. Elijah had to go walk about for 40 years. They all took 40 years. As Jeremy Griffith says, it will take decades. It would take decades. But you're too fast to get to nowhere. You don't even know what's going on. We don't care what mindset you're in. Scott Morrison stands at the UN in 2019. Go look at the video on YouTube. Scott Morrison at UN. The New World Order. Australia was given the lead. Okay? And they're used in the oldest civilization in the world, 60,000 years old, with that lead. Jeremy Griffith says we found the largest human being born on earth, 500 years old, the most loving, compassionate creatures, the most powerful spirituality, who can levitate a 1-ton stone, and fauna bends down and talks to them, and they grow 10 times more fruit with 10 times more nutritional value, and their fauna and their soil is 10 times more perfect than anything in the Western civilization that's collapsing between 38 and 98% nutritional value. So they have a relationship that's that powerful that they can replenish the earth with that kind of relationship and that kind of aura. When you stand next to them, you're gobsmacked and speechless and dumbfounded because their aura is that powerful it pours all over the top of you. It's that powerful. You understand why the trees and why fauna can feel that relationship because you can. So powerful, you never felt love pouring all over you like it in your life. Then you realize how dumb we are. White man crazy, white man guys are completely mentally insane and got no aura. Then you understand why the midnight in Australia are the watchers to watch over us, as they say, and why they push everyone in the abyss. Every person that goes near midnights, they take them to the abyss because their personality. They got no aura. Only 1 to 5%. Their body cells only prepares at night time for 3.5 hours a night. Their body cells are corruption and illusion during the daytime because they live in their mind. And they live in species in denial worldwide declared for a reason because they live in denial. You have to cross over, go through the rebirth to restore your biological genes with your natural selection life and a natural order. Ask Jeremy McGivers says and 16,000 top scholars. You live in denial. And you do nothing about this. To recreate the sacred secretion. And without that, you can't survive. You will not survive. I know your future. Read the book of Revelation. Look at the birds falling out of the sky. Look at the volcanoes right now. I'm telling you, they're going underground in nuclear bunkers worldwide. All the elite, all the top scientists, all the governments, all the militaries, Trump and Biden as well, nuclear bunkers worldwide. They're putting up nuclear warnings all over the world on your phones. NATO's told you worldwide on mainstream media, you better prepare for 3 days. The Bible warns you about that, and they saw it in the looking glass. They saw the future in the looking glass. They know the future, and so do we. But you can't deal with it. You can't fathom it. So you live in a delusion. And you won't be prepared for this at all. They know that. They know people can't handle the truth since 1999. They know that. People cannot handle the truth since 1999. They're species in denial and just keep going faster into nowhere but their own extinction without realizing it, without a care factor. For 26 years, they live in a global delusional state into themselves. Oh, and they think they're going to wake up overnight, even with my tools. They think they're going to work things out in a year or two. It took Moses 40 fucking years. Christ worked it out in 17 years. He taught his disciples how to do this in 3.5 years, the fastest on earth. And I'm the only one with the same tools on earth. But no one has any patience because they keep going backwards. They think, right, they work it out, they get another new comfort zone, and they don't continue to go through. They always stop somewhere in a comfort zone in another rabbit hole where they're far more comfortable but haven't crossed over. As Jeremy McGivers describes, Plato describes in 15 books, the greatest philosopher of all time. No one ever crosses over. Even Shilla mastermind monks and Buddhists that does this for decades, very few cross over. There's only a handful of people left in the world that's crossed over. People don't even understand what crossing over is. Look at the movie Limitless. He looks back at himself. He comes out of his shell and he looks back at himself. Like Keanu Reeves in the movie Matrix, right? He comes out of his shell and looks back at himself and controls his business from the outside in and beats resurrection. And that's what this is all about, resurrection. Crossing over in your primordial state. And you don't know you're trapped in your mind. You're trapped so deep in yourself, you just jump into another comfort zone. Because you think you know overnight. You will not know overnight. It took Moses 40 years. As Jeremy McGivers says, it would take decades to cross back over in a primordial state. In jail, you live by the quantum mechanic of a relationship only. That's what you learn in jail. Brotherhood and fatherhood only. No systems at all. You lose every single thing you got and every loved one in your life in 7 years. And you have nothing left. You dwell on moral guilt and shame for 7 years. When you're stuck in there for 7 years. Then after 7 years in a cycle of life, you hit an inflection point. And boom, you find freedom in prison you cannot find outside. You go back to 0 to 7 and explore the wonderful gift that God gave you when you could mastermind a computer game between 3 and 7 clockwise. So you start to go clockwise. And I've explained this in a lot of videos, how to go clockwise. You start to follow your instincts and think instinctively, and you don't think mentally anymore. You come into jail thinking mentally and doing your fucking head in for 7 years. And then after 7 years, you start to think instinctively outside the mind. And you find the cure of the human condition to preserve DNA and self-preservation made for life, recorded with DNA in 7 years of cycle of life. In this environment, not the environment outside. The environment inside prison, like a concrete jungle. And in there you live by the wino equally. 3 meals a day, the same clothes, no systems, no materialistic things. We consume 60 times more material things today than we did 100 years ago. We consume 14 times more food and all unnatural products with unnatural selection. They used to live to be 1,000 years old once and only ate one massive meal, right, for 6 hours once every 3 days. Look how much shit you eat today and what garbage you shove down your throat and how you function. You don't even know. Because the marketing strategy made sure they shoved shit down your throat and turned you into gene defects and mental disorders going through the roof, because every single thing causes a inflammatory disease. Nearly everything consumed, 67% of every product that you eat causes, right, side effects from poisons, snake poison, shellfish poison, and toxic poison that you put down your mouth every time you make a selection. And you don't even know what you're doing. You think you do. You don't even know what you shove down your throat. Be honest with yourself. The crap you shove down your throat and what you've been pushed into and what you normalize, you have no idea. You know why Christ said, don't eat red meat in the end? No, you don't. 90% of you will continue to eat red meat. And you'll fuck yourself so hard you've got no idea, because you continue to eat red meat. There's a reason why you don't eat red meat. And you have no fucking idea because you're that dumb. You're that possessed in your mind with unnatural selection that you kill yourself. That's why you got no longevity. So you can sit there and argue about this all you like. You all die from stress-related diseases because you don't listen to a word I say. You only listen to your own voice and your own mind with your own unnatural selection, and you don't care anymore. You're that unnatural with a marketing strategy and 5 senses. You have no idea what you're doing because you use your 5 senses in everything you do. 99% of the time you live in your 5 sense world, in your mind, in another comfort zone. Good luck with it. See how that works for you. You're so brain dead you don't know. I was #1 drug lord in the underground world in the Star Chamber category. I had millions of dollars, gave away 90% of my money recorded with evidence. I had massive drag cars, 300 grand's worth, 27 national records, 1 world record. I was on front page of magazines many times, newspapers, current affairs shows, right? Had millions of dollars, had a beautiful home, had every fucking thing in my life, had more friends, more faith than anybody in the world. People looked up to me everywhere. I had everything. But guess what? I had everything. And I was the biggest godfather in the underground world who changed the most circumstances I've ever seen in life. But guess what? When I went to jail, I learned the most important thing in my life. After 7 years, I lost everything. After 7 years, I found more freedom in prison and more love in prison, more loyalty, honor, respect, more inspiration and encouragement than I ever had outside. You live in peace and harmony. We all work about 2 hours a day in a unit. But you know what we do? We sit down and talk all day like the campfire man. We talk about our stories. We talk about our bad. We talk about the characters that we create and why we create them. And you start to realize your worst enemy becomes your best friend, and you love your best friend like your neighbor. Your neighbor is your worst enemy, right? There's a reason why the Bible says your neighbor is your enemy. He's your competitive person. But learn to love thy neighbor because he's your enemy. Learn to love thy enemy. Walk with the enemy, work with the enemy. Never cause someone to stumble. Always help them get back on the feet. Save a sinner, save someone suffering. And I've done that my whole life. Always save sinners and those suffering my whole life. That's who I stood for. Just like Christ did. A street warrior against the whole system, just like he was. No differently. But when I went to jail, I lived by the vineyard rule equally, how to govern life equally, and two similar commandments that Christ gave at his last dinner. Natural selection takes place in here and preserves DNA, and we find the cure of the human conditioning in here like this, in a concrete jungle like the Australian Aborigines that live in a community environment with nothing. No materialistic things. No money, no greed, no bad temptation, no sentimental value. When I came to jail, I lost everything, right? I had 12 80-litre containers with sentimental value stuff, trinkets, car memorabilia, records, photos of my cars, my drag cars. Man, I built more than 100 tough cars, right? I built a lot of brand new, rebuilt XY 4x4s. Man, I built so many cars, so many beautiful cars, GTs, GTHOs. Man, I had trinkets. I had so much memorabilia. I had some of the best models they ever came out with, right? The most expensive. I had the full collections, and I lost everything. That was my major pride. That was my major thing, was all my sentimental value of every single thing about me in my life. And I lost everything. Man, I was so angry when I lost everything in jail. Lost all my loved ones, my family. The ones I gave $72 million to left me alone. The ones that took care of my whole life left me posted. All the ones I gave thousands and thousands of dollars to and millions of dollars to, gone. And you wouldn't dream about that in a million years. I lost every single thing I had. I lost all my memorabilia and every single thing I had sentimental value in. Okay? And I want you to listen carefully. I want you to listen to me carefully. In jail, it was like in the 60s and the early 70s. Everybody's so happy in there, right, when you end up in the right jail. Now, I went on an operation for money laundering and set up by an undercover cop and put in a protection jail. That protection jail was for sex offenders. I ended up getting stuck there, right? And thank God that I wasn't the only one. There's a fair few people they also took out of mainstream like this. And so I had a lot of people in there that I knew. And I settled right into this jail after 7 years, right? And I found so much peace and harmony in there. It was unbelievable. After 7 years, a cycle of life, it becomes your home. Where after the first 7 years, all you think about is your home and the best moments you've ever created. And all your loved ones and all your family and all your friends. Materialistic things starts to wear off after 3 years. You don't care anymore. Everything about sentimental value wears off as well. But it's your family, it's your kids that hurts you the most. The love, the family, the relationships, your best friends, your best moments. And that's what you dwell on for 7 years. You dwell on it. Then you hit an inflection point and you find freedom in prison, and then all of a sudden it's like that's your home and you settle right in like you never could settle in 7 years. It was like you're in a dirty, filthy pit stop, right, waiting to go home. Then you hit the inflection point where you settle in as if it is your home and you don't care about outside anymore. You're totally cut off from everything and from every sentimental value and every single thing in here you suffer from. Every single thing you're attached to into a human conditioning with materialistic things, sentimental value, products, this, that, everything else, and God knows what else. You are now disattached from every unnatural selection program engineered into a marketing strategy, and now you're back in your primal state, right, like a child, where you don't care anymore and none of that stuff matters anymore, just like a child who doesn't know. You're right back to that square, right, but you're mature, you're an adult, but you're right back to that mindset, just like a child where nothing matters, and you're living in a perfect environment where they're paying, you have your 3 meals a day, okay, you have laundry there, you do your own laundry, okay, no problem. Okay, everything's taken care of. There's no power bills, there's no electricity bills, there's no rent bills, there's no nothing, man. And you know what? Life could not be any easier than a community environment like this. You find so much peace and harmony in an environment like this when you settle in, and your mind's in the right place, you never get trouble with anybody else. When you use natural selection and only the quantum mechanical relationship, like a father who leads the young, and take everyone under your wing and show them the ropes with the same ropes you're living by, nothing goes wrong. You never become the one picked on. All the other idiots pick on each other, but they leave you alone and look up to you. Everybody looks up to you when you're that one. And you never get in trouble. Everybody looks up to you. Everybody comes to you like you're the father. And you don't have one single problem, and everybody comes to you. And when you're in that mindset, wow, it doesn't get any easier. I come out of jail in 2010 and I rattled because everybody was trapped in the cave of the mind and had no aura, and atmosphere collapsing worldwide, and they can't even feel it. Fast track into nowhere. I lived in a time where time is still opposite for 10 years, and that's proven with DNA studies. I come out of prison with a place to go fast track into nowhere, but it's only extinction. And oh boy, you feel it when you come out of an environment like this, when you go back to your natural process, back to 0 to 7, and you come out of the cave from prison with the truth of masses, back in your primal state, in shining armor, in raggedy clothes, like a thief in the night, because people can't stand you. They can't stand you innocent. Oh no. No, they want to control you with their psychological mental behavior and can't keep a relationship together anymore. And they want to control your narrative and want to control everything about you. Every person does. All artificial humans, and you learn that. There's nothing innocent or selfless about any human being when you come out of jail. They're all artificial human beings, actors and robots, and do not know what they do. And you feel their aura's gone, collapsed, and the atmosphere collapsed. Now, something happened to me. I died in 2012, clinically dead, and went through a transformation and made a lot of videos about this. But then I was unlawfully deported, and I want you to listen very, very carefully. I come out of the cave of prison with the truth of masses, with my DNA found in 2008 with the most powerful confirmation on earth and most powerful declaration ever made in my DNA. I go through hell for 3.5 years after I was clinically dead in 2012, go through a transformation, sit down with 6 top officials worldwide and top bowlers. I'm one of a kind in a 6-hour meeting. One of a kind every study done for 34 years, and 16 years of DNA study. I'm one of a kind, primordial being number one on every study done, and it blew my mind away when I found this out. 6-hour interview. The next day, I'm in Perth Detention Centre. Yonge Hill. Please Google Yonge Hill, Perth Detention Centre. I want you to see where I was living. It's like a prison with a Y outside. Okay? It's like a prison. And they're dongers, and there's 4 rooms to every donger. Please have a look. Yonge Hill Detention, Perth. We have one donger where you have coffee, tea, toast, cereal, milk, butter and jam. 24 hours a day. We only get locked down in a compound. There's over 100 people in each compound. You know, they always say if there's less than 500 people in a community environment, right, everybody can communicate and there's no argue, debate and divide. It's always been that way. This explains the 15-minute city and why you'd be happy with nothing. And I'm not supporting this, but I'm telling you the truth. There's a reason why this is said. To bring us back in a primal state is under a new world order with Jeremy Griffiths as well, but not with a tyrannical behavior or with World Wide Web, but naturally and organically. The same outcome. The community environment that Aborigines lived by, right, in the jungle for thousands of years, going all the way back in human history. When they lived to be a lot older, by their natural selection life and their natural order, with natural products and natural everything, with 10 times more power and 10 times more everything with nutritional value. And 10 times older. Everything 10 times. Okay? So going back up a moral state to do what Christ can and more, be a positive bloodline, that's what this is about. Genetic process, genetic memory, and natural preservation made by for 1,000 years to live with the tree of life in a new timeline of 7-fold wisdom knowledge. And that's what this is about. And that's why I'm telling you what this is about. Living by the wine you do equally and to love one another and bear one's burdens in flesh. You learn that, right, in prison, and natural selection takes place when there's no system. You find more peace and harmony, more love and more natural abilities and more feelings and more instinctive behavior in your spirit in prison than outside, where people live in mentality with self-centered ego to be competitive. Actors all over the world on screens have no idea what they're doing because they've never gone through anything like this. When I went to Perth Detention Centre, guys, it was after this meeting on the 27th that the Orba light, the Menmen light, that some people have a relationship with. And I told you, go look at that guy on YouTube who has a relationship, who invites reporters out, and they come out there to meet the Menmen light with a relationship. Okay? So these orbs have been selecting people with a relationship, the UAPs. Okay? And you see he has a relationship and invited 150 people out from Sydney, including reporters that came out to greet. And the Menmen light came in to greet him with a relationship. The watchers and watchovers, as the elderly calls them. So an Orba light came to me inside Perth Detention Centre. In the cave of prison with the truth of masses, the orb came to me in Perth Prison Detention Centre. The compound's open 24 hours a day. Right in front of where our compounds are, you see there's a big oval and a big gym. And there's a big mess hall where 300 people sit to eat. So we have 3 meals a day. We go down to the mess hall to eat down there twice a day. And breakfast is up at inside our compound. We can make toast, cereal, coffee and tea 24 hours a day. We're not locked in. When I was sitting there for 15 months, and I remember jail, out of my whole life with national records, the underground world, rich, famous, God knows what else, I didn't give a fuck. Everything I've ever done in my life, with all the money I've had and all the life I've lived, my best moments in my life was actually in prison. My best moments I ever had was in Perth Detention Centre. It was. I'll be honest, man, we were stoned there every day, man. Drugs were there by the truckloads. We were stoned every day. I was smoking joints there, and I was fucking lying there in heaven every day. And the guys there was fucking beautiful, man. Right? We had the best time sitting like the campfire, sitting on the verandas all day, drinking coffee, washing our own clothes. We do our own thing, right? And we do our own, looking after our own cell, all that sort of stuff. And we have a little chore every day, right? No drama. But this community environment with nothing, no material, no more anything. You really go into peace when you've gone through my life and did 10 years in prison, right? And then you end up here. You really kick back because you realize it's the most beautiful, peaceful environment on earth. Mate, I could have lived in Yonge Hill forever, right? I'm serious. I even think about it today. I could have lived there forever, man. Right? You don't even care about sex, man. Honestly, it's the last thing in your mind because you stop that selection, right? When you've done that for 10 years without sex, it doesn't bother you, man. You're not controlled by it. I love being with a woman. I've got a beautiful wife here, but sex is not what it's about. It's about a soulmate relationship. It's about codependent relationship. And me and Maren, we are powerful on this. So powerful, you got no idea, and I was blessed. But the moral of the story is the future. I know the future. And what we're going to go through is a 6 mass extinction, stripping the 6 sense for the 6th time. And this planet's going to get wiped out with a million different things. But the end will be perfect. And this is how it's going to be. To live by the vineyard equally, as Christ said at the last dinner, with 2 simple commandments, to love one another and bear another's burdens in flesh, compassion and good deeds. When you're in prison, you only live by the quantum mechanic of a relationship with righteousness, and it all comes naturally with a natural selection when you're living in an environment like this and you're not controlled by a system. And you know, we are outlaws who are not controlled by the system. And when you come into prison like this and you go to Yonge Hill and sitting in dongas with a veranda, we sit out the front in the sun all day and his son most of the time, right? And wow, you just kick back in the most relaxed atmosphere you've ever lived it in your life. And that's the truth. I was being rejected and God knows what else, and being unlawfully deported. That's true. But in that moment, sitting in there was the most peaceful time of my life, okay, with our natural selection and a natural order. And in there, we live by the vineyard rule equally. We govern life equally. We love one another and be another's burdens in flesh. And in there, you realize, after everything you've been put through, what this is really all about. This is what it's about. Righteousness, the relationship, living by the vineyard rule equally, how to govern life equally, like the Australian Aboriginals have done for hundreds of thousands of years. That's why they have the most authentic DNA. That's why they don't have any alcohol poisoning. That's why they can use their sixth sense the most. That's why they're 500 years old and can levitate a one-ton stone and are the most loving, compassionate creatures on earth and the most spiritual aura you will ever feel in your life. And that's why the men lights, the orbs of lights, are the watchers and watchovers, has been there protecting them for human history for 5,000 years, and we get lied to everyone by everyone. Well, they come to me and selected me like this, in the outback of Australia, in prison, in Yonga Hill, with the most powerful divine intervention, and then these 6 international airports events take place. From that moment, 3 powerful miracles get created that day with solid evidence. The most powerful evidence ever created in my history through international events. When I'm unlawfully deported, I write 3 official documents that day. When that orb of light comes into my room, I write them that day. And then 11 months later, it becomes the most powerful confirmation on earth. The orb of light, the men light, the watch that watch over us. This is how I was selected at 5 years old. When the boogeyman come, Mummy, the boogeyman come, the monster in the bed, right? Some of us see a shadow, a celestial being, right? And scares the living shit out of you. You know, this is recording the biggest study of mental health research in the world. An unexplained aerial phenomenon, a celestial primordial being. A shadow we can't see. Angels watching over us, demons watching over us. People give selections, and none of that selection and give consent worldwide to the wrong entities. And that's a fact of life. This is recorded by the top holders in the whole world, and top DNA studies done with a boogeyman, an unexplained aerial phenomenon. Now, a lot of people have imaginary friends throughout their life. A lot of people talk to the boogeyman. A lot of people give consent to the boogeyman. The boogeyman's real. And your parents lie about it because they go to school to be mentally institutionalized, so the boogeyman controls them. We know that for a fact. That's the outside influence with UAPs that controls reality declared by Pentagon. And top scholars all over the world with the hostile entity, the voice of mind that told me some things, they'll tell you whatever you want to believe in. It's only a personality. It's only a personality. And people living their own personality with their own mentality, trapped with personalities in their mind. And they don't even know. So we cross people over back in the primordial state so they know. And never can control ever again. Freedom beyond the point of return. Freedom and the liberation that you need to cross over into to go in a new era, in a new timeline with 7-fold wisdom knowledge to live with the tree of life and stop living on the tree of knowledge in here. Because that's what's going to control you and take you in the abyss. In the 6th magic extinction driven, the 6th sense of the 6th time. And it's not negotiable, never was. Listen to me carefully. Very carefully. To go back into primordial motor skills is to live by the vineyard equally and to love one another and bitterness and flesh. And then your body cells does exactly the same thing. When you go back in your innocent childhood and back in your selflessness and crossover, your body cells does the same thing in a massive transformation. A genetic process, a genetic transformation. The orb of light that came to Christ, the orb of light that came to Moses, the orb of light that came to me at 5 years old and saved me from the boogeyman and took me into a porthole where I saw the past and told my mum about the worst moment in her life in 1945 World War II, and she shit herself. And I saw the future at 5 years old, and I've never been wrong. on peer reports by the biggest think tank in the world. I can predict the future. And I know exactly what's going on. And this is most powerful confirmation of the testimony of Dr. Reborn. I predict the future, and I knew at 5 years old. And I've never been wrong. I know the future. And it doesn't matter what you think. They saw it in the looking glass. I know the future. They stopped my book in 2004 with 66 court orders because I knew. 66 court orders in 2004 because I knew. And they knew I knew. The orb of light has been working with me throughout my life with the most powerful confirmation and most powerful declarations, most powerful divine intervention and miracles recorded in the hospitals worldwide. With me. 99.9% of people are so trapped in with the voice of mind themselves, into themselves, they don't care. Well, you were told in the Bible I'll be the only one. And if you don't believe me, you'll surely be devoured. And I know 99% of you will be devoured. Because I know your future. When you don't believe in me, you don't believe in the Father, you don't believe in God, no matter what you say. If you do not follow me, you're told in the Bible, I will come with the resurrection, protect the elect, and I'll be the only one with a wedding, with a bride, and 5 biblical signs. While the wedding, the bride, and the 2 witnesses was mainstream media on the 27th of July 2022, and you have no faith in it at all. That's not my problem. That's your problem. You are godless, you mild creature all over earth, and you only believe in your own truth. And God warned you, you will all be in a massive global delusional state, and you must dedicate to crossover. You must go through the resurrection. You must go through the crossover. You must go through the rebirth back in your primal state. Like you see in the movie Limits with a drug. He comes out of his shell and looks back at himself, and he's free to use 100% his mind and write a book overnight that's brilliant with a vortex of information with a universal language. They show you right in front of your face. A drug proves you do not know what you do. A drug proves you do not know what you do because you can't create the second secretion and master your own mind and use 100% of your brain and 100% of all your supernatural power, divine power to command nature. I can. And we teach it with We're Not Breathing, who's won a Nobel Prize, the Holy Breath of Life, and the book Freedom by Jimmy gives the Holy Grail of Life, held by 16,000 top scholars in the world. And if you don't believe in that merge, then I'm telling you, this is the merge that's going to lead society in the end plan. It's God's plan, and it will be enforced by nature, by natural selection. It will be enforced by natural selection, and not you or anybody else is going to have control of this. None of your systems are. You can think what you like. But God has a plan, and his plan is the Australian Aboriginals with Jeremy Givers and Scott Morrison says that to the UN in 2019. And if you don't like it, then trust me, God has a plan for you.